be wondering why there needs to be a special section on anger for a Naiji. Well, I'll give you 3 things to hold on to. Extreme. Naiji anger is extreme. Complex. Naiji anger is complex. Naiji anger is also hidden. So extreme, complex, and I'll just say cloaked. It's cloaked. And these 3 things together equal power. And as we all know, with great power comes great responsibility. You're going to keep hearing this over and over again. Being a Naiji, it's very important you know this. The fact that the Naiji temper is extreme means it's powerful. Even among some other people who have intense tempers, some people do different things with their temper than others. Naiji being directive and people-oriented tend to have their anger come out in extreme ritualistic kinds of ways that profoundly can affect the environment. So that would definitely sound like powerful. So that's a very powerful kind of thing to have in oneself. It doesn't make it good or bad. It just makes it powerful. It actually is designed to be good. That's actually its purpose. It's designed to actually be productive, as all the pod powers are. So with Nai, the dissatisfaction can go deeply into being frustrated, into being angry. And so these can feel like maybe negative feelings. And so often there's an attempt, see the section in Fozen, to suppress it, to hold it back, or to deny that part of oneself. And that's not the point. The point is to use it nobly. There is strong correlation of this section to the section on warp frenzies, but they are 2 separate things, because the warp frenzy is just one aspect of the anger. So it will be mentioned in here, but we're also going to go over the whole pantheon of the way it can be manifested. The frenzies are just an extreme form, but it's a constant in the life of an Naiji. Next, complex. That compounds the power, because a lot of Naiji, as mentioned, the extremeness makes them maybe want to not do anything with it, to sort of lock it up. But there's another element, it's crafty like this. The anger of the Naiji is very, very complex, and therefore it shows itself in so many ways and comes out in so many different manifestations, both inwardly and outwardly, that it's very common for other people, for sure, and usually the Naiji, to recognize some of the manifestations as being manifestations of anger, and not recognizing other manifestations of anger as such. Also, there is a compartmentalization Naiji have of, oh, I only get angry in those certain times. But they have to recognize that there are triggers that set them off, and when they do, it's going to be generally more intense than most other humans. So some Naiji are more or less aware of the fact they have modes, and some modes have more or less anger and have it manifest in certain ways over others. But even a Naiji who's aware of that, even a masterful Naiji such as myself, it's still always catching me off guard. I'm always being educated about what my anger can do when I'm aware of the anger to start with, and then other times I'm being told by the world, or my spirit forms, being educated on anger manifestations in ways I didn't know, because basically it permeates my entire lens. As a Naiji, you must actually get a very good rapport with your rage. That doesn't mean throw it around. That doesn't mean actually fall in love with it. It means get a very good rapport. It's simply the major conduit of power in your psyche, hence the constant signal of dissatisfaction. Next, hidden. The hidden aspect, the cloaked aspect, again compounds the power of it. So first of all, it's intense to start with, more intense than most other people's, and then it's complex in that it comes, it goes, it shifts a lot. So that's the complexity. But it also is cloaked, which means there's a suddenness to it. And that's crucial. Even if people are aware that you have a very complex temperament, you will still shock them at the suddenness of how quickly it turns on and at what volume. There's no way to train a person to get used to that showing up out of nowhere. This also relates to you. If you're an IG reading this, which is that you will also be hit with the temper by your spirits, which is then usually when the environment sees stuff happening as well. So even though you may know that your temper is very intense, more intense than other people's, you may be aware, my temper is very complex. It comes out in different ways depending on what mode or mood I'm in. But then finally, yeah, it jumps me. That's part of it. So you will actually be jumped by your temper, and you'd be ready for that. It's just, if you're just kind of being a Starfleet captain, I mean, that shit just happens. It's sort of like meteors that come out, and sometimes your sensors can get them. It's a question of how quickly your sensors can read it. But intense spikes of dissatisfaction going into rage, going into violent rage, verbally, physically, psychologically, artistically, but that can happen quickly, from zero to that in a snap. So this is something that an IG must constantly pay attention to. This would sound like, wow, it's a lot of work. It is a lot of work, but the upside is this pretty much powers everything an IG does. What you're angry about, what you can do to change it, this is basically the perception and discernment for an IG. So an IG note things that are absurd. They note things that shouldn't be the way they are. And how you note this is they annoy you. It's the rage, and this is why I understand this light, it's very heroic. It's actually a detector for truth. And truth gets annoyed, angry. It hates untruth. Truth hates untruth like matter hates antimatter, or something of that equivalent. It's just binary. So it has a very life-giving property to it, in that it's actually teaching you the way to go or what's going on. And it does so by getting angry at things not going the way they're supposed to go, or people saying that natural law works in a way in which it does not. From anything from cosmology down to how husbands and wives should get along. If they're wrong, it makes us angry. And that's where the power comes from. So we have to own that. Plus, if you don't, it's just going to keep pushing through, because as the most powerful signal, just like you can't get rid of the signal of dissatisfaction if you're an IG, you will not be able to get rid of this temper keep surging up to the surface like a volcano. It will burst through anything you put there. In fact, if you try to hole up the volcano, that pisses the volcano off and just makes it erupt harder. So really what you need to do is actually figure out how to channel the incredible powers a volcano gives off. And IG are built to do that. The entire psyche is designed to actually see things that cause an eruption of energy. At its purest, it's not angry yet, but it will almost instantly because of its purity. It is absolute, pure, natural law. And instantly, we're talking all the way up in the high Fumasta, we're talking immediately from when you leave the shiny baby, or pure natural law of truth. The first inkling of real worldness, even from a distant thing, will immediately tell you there's going to be a problem. There's no way to get pure natural law. And instantly, the moment you open your eyes from the reverie of having been with natural law, to there's going to be a problem. One implies the other, and that is actually the fuel that makes an IG go. As an IG, I'm going to just jump around a little bit now. There is a need to push your anger through a frame in order to create something. For us, that's going to be teaching people the way things should be. This can be teaching them mentally, emotionally, physically. This can be teaching them in any field you could think of. But you simply believe that you know better. you have to talk to your spirits. You have to actually really study on it, ponder on it, and make sure you do know better. But if you do know better, then how are you going to make them know this? That's the question, and it's a difficult question, and it takes a lot of energy to figure out how to make people see things that they don't want to see. It's a very arduous task, but that's pretty much the task of an IG by definition, is to go see things that you didn't want to see, stomach that shit, and then come back to the tribe. But since if you on a regular basis keep doing things that you don't want to see yourself, very quickly most IG look wise beyond their years by the time they're like 8 years old. Most people can't keep up with that rate of digesting raw truth. So there comes the need to both force people using whatever methods necessary to see the truth, and as much as possible make this non-destructive, making creation a primary sort of connected element with the rage. Rage is required in order to obliterate things and to create things. So when a Naiji sees something the way it's not supposed to be, there's going to become, well, first they saw truth, then they realized truth is going to be a problem in the world, and the question is always one thing: what is it going to take? It's a simple question, but it is hard as any human has ever been pushed, because the reason why truth of natural law is not currently out in the world is always usually for the same reason. It's too difficult. It's either too difficult intellectually, it's too difficult financially, but usually the one of all that is the supremo, the numero uno, is it's too difficult spiritually. Heroically, it's just difficult. So the rage helps an IG make themselves do things they don't want to do in order to be the hero. It also makes them make other people do things they don't want to do in order to be the hero. This is very intense, so this is not meant for, constant interaction. An IG are actually going to have to learn, as part of being an IG, how to work this in and out of more normal interactions. But an IG aren't really built to be doing normal interacting most of the time. They're meant to spend most of the time pondering, discussing the truth with people they respect, and then educating the other people. That's kind of the 1, 2, 3 of it. And dealing with whatever fallout comes from that. So, as an IG, there will be a need when the rage comes on you to do something with it, or it will get extremely uncomfortable. There will be a feeling of agitation in the body. And often for an IG, all you can really think of is how can I get rid of it, which is usually when you go Zai, just sort of like freeze it out. But no, what you're meant to be doing, and this is one that can get you into trouble, which is why a lot of IG step away from it, is actually pushing it out through Ji. That's actually how it's meant to happen. The thing that's really going to get you through this process is the Nai simulator. And this is because you need to rant. And you need to rant to whatever crescendos of righteous rage you need to go to in order to speak your mind and say what is what. If you do this around other people, or people who are not ready for that, or are not designed and trained for that kind of activity, then the results in the environment can be just catastrophic. It will be freaked out by this display of just vicious, it can be often verbal, but with Naiji, when they actually go off, they can just zero in on people's weaknesses and things that they care about in a way that scares people. So Naiji have to get used to rage being kind of like a raw ore that they need to like sculpt And when it's at its proper stage, introduce it into more public discussion. So most of the initial rage that you have and you need to vent it, you should vent it towards imaginary friends and imaginary foes in your simulator. And basically tell the foes how you are going to beat them because they are wrong, and tell all your friends how you are going to give them everything they need to be safe and be the best they can. Now, that can get you trouble saying something so raw like that to anyone, even your friends. But you need to say these things. You need to know you feel that strongly about something. And then, once you've spoken it by yourself, you know, wow, that's what I care about, and that's how strongly I care about it, and now I can begin to work from there. And that'll tell you right then who to start talking to and in what way. So, nice simulator. You want to do a lot of ranting in that in order to actually generate your productive material, because the rage will actually convert into just gorgeous, brilliant ideas for an IG to use in any sphere you can think of. Once the rage has something to push into, a mold. It needs a mold to push into. So when it first comes out, it's kind of like splat. But then you can begin molding from there. But be careful about people being around you during the raw splat period. Getting into some aspects, for example, the complexity or the sort of hidden nature, is that one of the greatest powers, I would say maybe even the greatest power of rage, is something that surprises people, and that is detachment. Detachment is the ultimate anger. It is the complete removal of any care or concern for something. Because when you say that Naiji have these intense anger they need to be concerned about, people generally are talking about, for example, the sometimes savage verbal onslaught that maybe G could do, or the kinetic warp frenzy of V. These things are more overt, but actually Naiji have rages very much in all their spheres, including Zai and Nai. And Nai is actually the worst of them, and it is the native realm of the Naiji. And when a Naiji gets angry to that degree, they pull away because they need to do major metaphysical work, and they need to detach from the patient. I guess not unlike a doctor. You need to detach in order to do your work properly. So there needs to be like a distance. So rage with a Naiji, a lot of Naiji may recognize this more readily, especially if they're the type that have made themselves control the overt, objective power-oriented forms of rage, which is, I just start pulling away. And I start seeing everything from a far, far look-away glass. This is essential for a Naiji. First of all, because it allows them to see themselves from this perspective, and then they can decide what they think of that person. This person that right now they don't have a vested interest in. Not when they're looking at it in this detached way. Say a person's Bob. Bob right now is not personally in a lower level invested in Bob's story. You're kind of maybe bothered that Bob is you by the way, is not understanding what to do. So you detach from Bob and you look at Bob and go, why can't Bob get this? And then you get the answer. But you have to actually dislike yourself so much at your current state that you detach from it to try and figure out how to kill that stupid self you currently are. In fact, a distaste to return to your apparatus, to your conscious construct of yourself in that former state. You don't want to go back to it, not if it's going to be that small and stupid. So anger is actually one of the secrets to enlightenment. It's one of the secrets to greatness, is to not accept yourself as you currently are. Because growth takes death. Death takes anger. To do it willingly, to put something down. So if a Naiji wants to grow, they need to put themselves down on a regular basis. Whatever they thought of themselves and they were really feeling good about, like they were really fucking smart, they need to go out of their way to find out stuff that creature doesn't know so they can kill that one. It's fundamental, and it sounds like a very harsh way to look at it, but the best Naiji think this way. If they're a movie maker, they want their next movie to dwarf the one that came before it. Any artist who doesn't want this is not a very good artist. Any visionary, any seeker. You're not a very good seeker if you're okay with something that was about as good as the one before. You want to crush that. That was your old performance. If you take the movie, for example, people think that's what that director can do, that's what that writer can do, that's what that actor can do. They want to kill that idea of people's minds that that's their range. They want their next thing to blow them away as I can do way more than that. My ability is way higher than that. So you would start that second movie or second project with a clear intention to use your last one, like an MMA fighter would say, as a stepping stone. You use your past work as something to walk over to your better self. And that way of thinking is a secret to Naiji breaking so many records, is because they see something either as their current plateau or something that another being has that they want to have in some field, particularly intensely in anything they can say on. So if they can say in a certain field, they will look at who is the best in this field. And once their Nai knows, anger, because you're not there. You're not where the best are, and that enrages you. It enrages you that people in something you're kenseiing on, for example, are ahead of you. That's proper. It gets you going. And after you beat all of them, for example, Naiji are very good at beating everyone, anyone in their bubble usually, then how do you keep from plateauing? By being disgusted, enraged with yourself. If you come in and you do 1,000 something that's spiffy, and you're okay with that, then you're not going to do 1,005. You're not going to do 1,010, and then you won't reach 2,000, which is perhaps something you were capable of doing and would have been unprecedented for you and maybe unprecedented in the world. Greatness. So you need to do 1,000 and be happy with 1,000 the first time you do it. Then that's the minimum. The next time you go out in life, in whatever sphere, that's your starting bid. That's how you roll. And if you are unable to clear that, you get angry with yourself. So a lot of this anger can be primarily in a Naiji's head. Many people can't even note it. Nijai are actually designed to note this because they can actually tell, often if they're attuned, to the energy spikes in a Naiji. Naiji can be just the absolute masters of hiding this, having their face not actually move while they're experiencing intense spikes in anger, in dissatisfaction, or detachment. But Nijai, with the powers of Ni and Jai, can actually pick that up through the sixth sense and the tuning fork quality of the Jai, especially when set to empathetic. What else? Staying back in the subjective area for a little bit here, the cold shoulder. This is another one that a lot of Naiji may be more familiar with. is that they're like, I don't have a bad temper. In fact, I'm a pool of cool water. Yeah, icy cold sometimes, particularly people displease you. So you are polite, if not demonstrative, if people are doing what you like. If they don't, you give them the freeze. This is different than a Zai Mojo doing this. Zai Mojos are just chili calm, awesome bubbles of equilibrium. For a Naiji, the Zai generally has two main purposes: to stabilize yourself against impact, and also to not care, to be dismissive, dispassionate to your own feelings and other people's feelings if they are a problem. So Zai can have a temper to it, and particularly when used by a Ji Mojo, in this case a Naiji, because Zai is being used for a reason. If there's not a reason to chill oneself out, then you are taking away warmth, you're taking away charisma, you're taking away connectivity, you're taking away the more heroic motifs you could be enacting being a Naiji for some reason of your Zai. Your Zai is actually deciding that you're not going to give that. Now, sometimes it's necessary. Perhaps you're not being treated the way you'd like. People are being rude. Then it's good to actually freeze them. Meaning you're not enacting a higher motif of friendly bonding with these people, but that's because they're not. So you're going to take this in the direction it should go by giving them the freeze, and either you will no longer be getting wronged, because the options are no longer to have a friendly rapport. These people have already decided it's going to be an unfriendly rapport, so your options are to accept being wronged or not. In that light, it's good for your Zai to go, no, I'm just going to stone face you, give you nothing, and that's my way of dealing with something I don't like. This needs to be used for the right reason, because Naiji can be very masterful using kind of the student-teacher dichotomy of getting people to do what they want because of using that freezing on people whenever they are not getting what they want. But done correctly, Zai has a very strong ability to anesthetize oneself, and it sounds funny, but that actually is a product of rage, particularly for a Naiji, because, well, I mean, Zai is not only rage, for Naiji it is because Nai wants to go and find truth, and then Ji wants to enact it in some way. Zai comes on to deal with that not being able to go. It's an adaptive power meant to deal with, in the case of directives, the plan's not going according to plan. That's primarily when Zai comes in. So basically, there is a need to go cold in order to survive when the world is being rough with you. Because if you allow what they're saying to bother you too much, then you won't survive. And so rage has an incredible survival quality. And so when a Naiji feels threatened, or simply impeded, this is important, Naiji with visionary drive, if they feel impeded, the rage is there to give them more juice in order to deal with the impediment or the threat. So this can be for an Naiji often going cold, going stone-faced, going almost catatonic. Combined with the detachment, this is like disassociation. And this dissociation is pretty much like the greatest rage there is as far as inwardly, because you're like ceasing to associate with the world in any way, both in a V visceral way or a G relationship way. This may sound at this point like this is a lot of negative. However, it's not when you understand that the Naiji's main gift is to find out things that the tribe doesn't know and then give it to them. So when it does this, humans in the tribe with the Naiji are often going to, in their role, doing what they do, even if they're doing things heroically, they're not wired to do that as much, so there's going to be a pull on you to don't go out there. Why do you have to go out into the woods? Why can't you stay where the lights can still see? There needs to be an agitation, a feeling of your feet having like pins and needles in them. You're getting twitchy because you just can't stay knowing the perimeter of the village as it is. And so if people call to you to stay, you need to start pulling away from them so that the forest can call to you more. This is important. Sometimes people ask you to stay with them. Bubbles ask you to stay doing certain things, and everyone involved may love each other. The family may love the person who wants perhaps to go out on their own. The family may not want that person to do that. When that happens, there needs to be an ability to say, I will not have my heroic story arc impeded. And disassociating is how one gets off things that other humans are unable to get off of them in order to go down roads. There's certain roads that you can only be gone down if you are free of truth baggage. So you have to get rid of baggage. Baggage can call to you very plaintively to stay with it. So you have to get angry enough to become deaf to those pleas. Next, some other positive qualities here. Oration, giving speeches. There's a compelling quality to the rage. In fact, a lot of Naiji may not even think they're angry because the last time a person can remember them getting quote-unquote angry was like forever ago. The anger does not have to come out in a distasteful way. This is important to note. The anger can actually come out almost like rocket fuel. So if a Naiji cares very deeply about something, they feel that the truth informed in a certain way, and it's not that way. This will upset the Naiji so much that they'll want to speak on it. But they can speak very eloquently. They can speak tenderly, sensitively. But the intensity at which they do it has an incredible, compelling quality that really ratchets up the charisma. And that intensity actually comes from anger. It comes from anger that, as I am giving this natural law lecture, whatever it may be, to friends, family, or anyone who will listen, is things are not the way they're supposed to be. Here it is, kids. As we speak. As we speak right now in the streets, such and such is happening. And that gives such a compelling quality to you yourself of the reason why you're saying what you're saying and the importance of it. Rage is integral to importance. For example, if you are angry at something, it often becomes very important that you deal with it because it's so uncomfortable. In fact, generally speaking, the more important something is, if people ignore it or abuse it, it is heroic to get correspondingly angry. So when a person, for example, is giving a persuasive pitch on something, if they sound sort of monotone, or if they sound too calm, that's crucial. It tells the other people in this heroic script listening to the words that the words say that what's going on demands action right now. But I'm not being hit like that. The anger can give an intensity without any swear words, without actually even shouting. But the compelling stare you in the eyes and demand that you see what I'm saying. Who's going to look down first? Not the person who's got the right answer. Why should they? So it can even be calm, but it has just this drive to it that everyone must bow their heads to the truth. This can be done like in a very sympathetic way. You can make a very sympathetic appeal and then eyeball them and demand that they recognize the truth of what you just said. And people will look at you like you're a jackass, even after you told them the truth. Not if you eyeball them. Not if you dare them. When they look you in the eyes, and you could have just cussed at them, or you could have just given them a very, very imploring appeal to conscience. But then you stare at them of like, I'm asking you to be a hero, please, and you know you're supposed to do that, right? Right? And you just eyeball them. Old ladies who are like 4'5", who can barely get out of a chair, can stare down giants like that. Basically, they speak truth and then they stare at you. And then the big person, or the cool person, or the person with lots of money, or the person with lots of lawyers, they stare back at you like, you should look down because there is more of us. And then you look back and say, no, you look down because I'm right. You look down because truth is truth. That takes anger, and the more the environment tries to persuade you that you should look down, that after you speak truth, you should look down, it makes you angry. How dare they? How dare they think that more money means that they're right? That having more people that are cracking jokes at the clothes I'm wearing as I speak truth, that changes anything. The more that they bring up irrelevant stuff that doesn't change anything, all it does, if it's a heroic naiji, is make them angrier. This anger can actually look very calm. The calm of a person who has decided to dedicate their life to educating these fools who are laughing at them now. So keep laughing, but he who gets the right answers and prove it laughs last. That's a powerful, righteous anger to have. If you're in a village that's being stupid and all of them laugh at you when you say the right way to go, you go, and you calmly walk out of town, you detach from it, and you go dedicate your life to getting the truth, and then you dedicate your life after that to making sure the truth can be proven, and then, you go back to that town, anyone else will listen, and you prove to them that truth is truth. You do it calmly, you do it with a loud voice, you do it with anything and everything your life force can provide. Right there, that sounds like, wow, that's a lot. When you're angry enough, you don't think in these terms. You don't think, I'm using a lot of my energies to get my will be done. You think, how can I get more energy to use? That's all you think about. Not that I actually have used 100% of me. You're like, how can I get more so my 100% is bigger so I can use all of that? That's all you want. Use everything you can, get more, use that until you get truth's way done. Let's see, war frenzy. That's mentioned in the section, but war frenzy often has a connotation of violence in like a negative way, but or if not negative, at least a combative way. But it doesn't have to. The war frenzy can actually be any fanatical exertion of the body. So it can actually be used for obviously athletics, but for artistic creations, for constructing a log cabin, things of this nature. So the rage can actually look like extreme drivenness. Because that's what drivenness is. Drivenness is, I want to be over there. And like, it makes me angry that I'm not there now. So that's why we make a log cabin in 3 days or 8 hours or whatever world record there is for making a log cabin, because I want it now. And so once Nye sees the truth, it wants it made manifest, like pronto, pronto, pronto. So it can actually drive the Naiji to suddenly get up from the couch that had been sitting for 9 months and like all of a sudden like, you know what, I need to rearrange my apartment. And just boom. Because if you thought about it too much, that would seem like an inordinate amount of work. But when you're angry and you're in that state, you don't really think like that. Like the shelves are bothering you, like they're laughing at you in that position. Because once the Nye has actually decided this apartment, like in a Nye way, shouldn't look like this, a Naiji will actually have a hard time, even if they're like sick, not like rearranging shit or doing whatever needs to be done to move things more in alignment with the vision. So that's a cool thing. But this does not need to look like temper in a way, and so it doesn't have to have like a negative quality that temper often has. But you should be aware as an IG, because you basically need to become a temper master. There's really no way to be an IG and not do that. So that's part of your little temper power set. Your temper as an IG has like a whole bunch of little toolbox ways it can be used, and one of them is you can actually make a physical activity that may be arduous, but you really want it. You can kind of like stare on it with your Nye and keep like looking past it, kind of like karate style, like looking past the board or punching past the board, and then it becomes like an itch. The rage becomes an itch. It's like, I could just rearrange this apartment. It would look cooler. It would look cooler. And finally, OCD will start cooking in your head, like, it would be cooler if I moved my apartment around. It'd be cooler if I moved my apartment around. And finally, you just can't listen to that incessant rattle in your head, and you just get up and do something amazing. And boom, the apartment's rearranged. You like the way it looks, and it's actually a productive experience all around. Usually for Naiji, the rage is a problem when they don't know they have it. They don't know its variety and intensity and how it can come on suddenly, and they don't use it properly, they don't channel it for something. But done properly, it's actually the main power source for the Naiji, and Naiji can do amazing things and have incredible heroic potential. So rage has a lot of heroic potential. Let's see. I mentioned the 4 different frenzies based on the powers. I'll just say that Naiji start dissatisfied because their simulator is very, very close to the way truth should be, much closer than the real world is, and so that's just innately dissatisfying. If you think on it at all, you'll move from constantly dissatisfied to frustrated. Frustrated, if you stay frustrated and don't divert your attention as an IG, the frustration will move to deep anger. Particularly if you've not been able to make whatever is causing this go away. So usually dissatisfied, or as I often say, that annoys me. So usually when IGs like that annoys me, they do something and then it stops annoying them and yes, I'm happy again. So if that doesn't do it right away, frustration can come in, and then if you alleviate it, the land rejoices again. But if it doesn't, it goes to deep anger, and then once it goes to deep anger, it gets to hatred. And hatred is very much a part of completely relaxing the Nye and Zai inward controls over the outward actions of the Naiji. So when going into that mode, that's when the Naiji basically has their last chance to control the rage in some way. After that, one of the 4 frenzies will take over. It can be V, very physical. It can be G, just a verbal, psychological beatdown. It can be Nye, okay, and I'm going to Spain now and never returning and changing my name. Or Zai, I'm just going to stay here and be an icy cucumber and act like I don't hear anything we're saying. Whatever it is, the frenzy will kick on and hopefully alleviate the rage. But once you alleviate the rage, it just comes back. Not unlike sex, once it actually releases itself, it just builds back. And like a muscle at a gym, it just gets stronger. So the more you use the rage, the more it'll want more to do. The rage will actually ache to release itself on something. So as an IG, you have no choice, because if you take rage by the hand and actually become the master of it, then it's going to get stronger and stronger, so you're just going to have to get comfortable dealing with that. But if you don't do that, as you get older, the rage gets stronger, so it's going to happen anyway, and you'll be stuck in any number of the four frenzies, because your full-time job, like Faux Zen, for example, doesn't look like overt rage, but actually Faux Zen, the full-time job is dealing with rage, dealing with dissatisfaction, dealing with frustration, so you just numb it, numb it, numb it, numb it, but that's all you really do is just numb it. So that's not really an option. You have to take it and sort of ride that rage dragon, and know that the rage dragon, when you ride it, it's going to go, yay, this is fun, and it's going to get bigger and stronger, and fly stronger and farther, and get spells and flame throwing in its mouth, and that's actually fun, but you have to use it for the right reasons. Okay. When the Naiji get really worked up, one thing that may concern them is people will often say, that's not angry. I mean, this is the opposite. Before I was saying it made it look like anger because of the Nai or the Zai actually making it look non-demonstrative. This is the opposite. This is beyond demonstrative. This has entered into crazy land. This has entered into fanatic. This has entered into psycho. So a lot of Naiji, when they first have their anger come on them, they often will try to like keep it at bay, and then it builds up and it releases against their will, and it sort of like pops out, full power, full tilt flagrante, and generally freaks out everyone they know. So that's something that you'll have to watch out for. That does not mean your rage is bad. It doesn't mean suppress it, but it does mean that you need to channel it. You need to give it regular workouts. You need to become a master of it. And with all that said, you'll still need to do the initial raw stages in your simulator. So either in your head or alone somewhere where no one can hear you. Otherwise, Naiji rage often strikes people as being beyond temper. Like, that's not, like, no, normal people get angry. That's crazy. But when Naiji get angry, that just feels like, I'm this angry, but we might just run down the street, in our underwear with a hatchet because we're angry. A lot of people are like, that's not angry, that's crazy. Naiji, like, you say tomato, we say tomato, but that is something you should be aware of being Naiji. What else we got here? Personalizing. Rage, for Naiji in particular, it comes from being Nai Alpha, but it's also associated with a particular flavor with Ji. So Naiji care very deeply about things. They care about their friends deeply, and they care about their foes deeply. And so whenever a Naiji wants to do anything, they want to do work, they want to do something for school, they want to exert themselves really in any way. If the Naiji can think of how this would in some way increase them heroically so that they could help a friend out, or to impress a friend, or so they could lessen a foe, or to, if not impress, intimidate a foe. Those kinds of motivation get an Naiji going. So once an Naiji starts thinking about what they could do in order to raise up a friend or to lessen a foe, what it would take comes into it. And then, if the Naiji listens to their soul voice, they'll hear their friend calling out to them, pleading for them to do what they must do to help them. Naiji actually have to watch out getting too wrapped up into their close people's emotions. But used properly, it is just a magnificent and heroic power. It's the power that when you see, like, ooh, my friend could be helped out if I did such and such. Once you have that thought and you know you could do it, even if it took effort, you can now hear the friend, like, that would be cool. They didn't even told a friend this. They didn't even know you're thinking about helping them out. But once that comes into your mind, your higher spirits will basically tell you that that person would be helped and why aren't you helping them? And you get angry that you're not doing it. And then as you go forward to help your friend and the world gets in your way, that's angering. How dare they get in the way of you helping out a friend? See right there? It makes it personal, but that's good for an IG. How dare the world get in the way when I'm trying to help a friend out? Boom, boom, boom. Shrug, shrug, get out of my way. And then vice versa. There's a bad person or bad things going on. That shouldn't be like that. And once you realize it shouldn't be like that, and you do possess a power or could possess a power to do something about it, as you don't do anything about it, your spirits will get angry with you. They'll get angry with the Naiji of why aren't you doing that? Why are you allowing this villainy to take place on your watch? You saw it and you saw that you could do something about it, so why aren't you? So then finally you get angry at yourself for being such a loser, and you get up and you decide, I'm going to be a heroic winner, and you get out there and go and you tackle evil. And when you go out there and tackle evil, well, people get in your way and say you shouldn't, because they're scared of what evil's going to do, and then evil obviously fights back. How dare evil fight back? Evil should just sit down in a chair and just take its beating. But no, evil's going to try and fight back, and that just makes us angry. How dare they try and actually win? That sounds ridiculous, but how dare they try and win when they're wrong? They're trying to win when they're wrong. What? Because might makes right? Okay, I have the most might there is. It's called a fanatic's temper. And that's basically the core of an IG. The truth should go forward. That's what heroes do. And if something gets in the way, you explain to it why it should not. And Naiji are masters of dismantling with their Ji and Zai every logical fallacy. But at some point, you realize it's the worst logical fallacy of all, usually. Appeal to authority or fear. The answer is obvious, but no one's going to do it because they're scared. They're scared of what will happen if you actually say the correct answer. Oh, that's just got to piss you off, Naiji. You're Naiji and you're actually like, no one's going to say 2 + 2 = 4 because they're scared the teacher will beat them with the ruler? Oh, fuck that. You get up and you eyeball a teacher and say 2 + 2 = 4. And if they raise that ruler, you're like, oh no, do not make me take that ruler out of your hand and beat you with it. Naiji do shit like that, and that's how truth gets done, because sometimes people say 2 + 2 = 5. They say Jews should go in ovens. They say gay people are making a choice. That's angering, and when that shit happens, you get angry. Alright, what else? It goes with detachment, but a kind of a more fine shading of it that you can use more in an active sense is that you can tunnel vision with the anger. You can actually sort of detach or even disassociate, but not completely. You can actually hold on. This is crucial. It sounds weird. You can actually hold on to something more by disassociating. By disassociating from everything else, you can keep what you're focused on more in mind's eye. So you start walking towards a goal, and people are like, you're all out of money. Money's not that important. And you can just kind of shrug these things off because you know it's important, and when people bring these things to you of why you should stop, a lot of it is things that are concerning them, and you need to be like, well, I'm sorry, but I just really can't care about that. Other times, for example, being told that you don't have any money, you're like, that is concerning to me. And then you realize, uh-oh, I'm starting to weaken. The thought of what I'm losing is keeping me from the goal. So you decide, will it actually keep me from the goal? No, but being scared will. Whining will. So you move your ass. You move your ass, Naiji, and then as you do, you're like, okay, I'm angry at myself for being distracted about that because this often happens. That in itself may not stop you, but concerning yourself will. Allowing yourself to pine over something that's not a necessity when you're going towards the goal. So you have to get angry at yourself for being so silly. This is key. Naiji can be angry at all kinds of things for being silly, like cutting off things in their life, physically, metaphysically, that are things you would generally consider, even Naiji, to not be things you want to part with. However, if it comes between parting with that and your entire physical or metaphysical life, then it is a small price to pay, and stop whining. And your spirits tell you this, and then you do so, and you treat the world accordingly, because the important things must live. The important things must survive. Truth must go forward. I must go forward. Rage, by the way, is very, very useful for survival, because when something tries to push you down, for example, in the analogy of the little old lady who's staring down a room of big dudes who are doing wrong, that was that person starting it. But it can also happen you just get jumped. You get jumped by life, and life is big and sees you and says, ooh, I'm going to take you. And when it does this, there can be a feeling of, why did it choose me? Why did it choose me to be the prey? I guess I'm prey in the story. There can be this feeling of, I guess 50 people would have not have chosen to jump me if the story didn't say I was supposed to be prey. Bummer, man. No. Anger. How dare a person think that I'm the one who's supposed to die in this story? 2 people think I'm supposed to die. That doesn't break my belief that that's stupid. It makes me more angry because 2 people are saying something stupid to me. Go get an entire town who believe this story is I'm supposed to be kicked out of town, or I'm supposed to die, or I'm supposed to be blacklisted. No. My story is I'm going to be a hero, and I'm going to get my way and do good and be successful and be rewarded and have a happy little clan of spiffy people around me. And it's angering how many people keep saying the truth isn't the truth. For example, if 2 + 2 = 4, and you go up to a person on the street and say, isn't 2 + 2 4? And actually they say, no, it's 5. And you go to another, well, it makes you angry. And you go to another person, they say the same thing. I'm curious, how weak-minded are you? Do you allow the 5th, 50th, or 5,000th person who tells you 2 + 2 = 5 to break you? Or do you just get more enraged at the insanity of this person, this diner, this street, this town, this state, this country? Because it doesn't matter how many people are saying 2 + 2 = 5, it's not. It's just getting more ridiculous. It started as laughably ridiculous and then not funny ridiculous. That's all that happens. Okay, good. I'll just kind of close off here by saying that basically for an IG, your anger makes you more powerful. And I guess you can kind of think like, the Incredible Hulk. We're like visionary Hulks, but people often think like the Incredible Hulk in more of a V sense. The more angry he gets, the more physically strong he gets. Just we have that power, but that's just one of our powers. All our powers get better because the physicality increases as we get anger, but so does our chilliness. We actually can do more Zai tactical things. We become quote-unquote smarter, more cleanly logical. Our logic improves as we get anger. So does our Ji. Our powers of persuasion, our heroic conduct, because we won't allow the world to tell us, don't be a hero because you'll get hurt. People will laugh at you. You'll be abandoned. You get angry, I'm not going to allow that to lessen my code of conduct. So the anger actually can make a Naiji go to incredible lengths of Ji gallantry. Nai, brilliance. Nothing has invented more things in this planet than probably a Naiji's pissed off Nai. It is enraged that things are as they are, and it just thinks, what could be invented in order to make this better, in order to show truth? How could this be done? That actually is a law, but there should be relentless anger of like, why don't I know that? Why are my numbers at all off truth? And never accept that it's okay. Like, well, 99% is pretty good. No, keep going. Keep going. So push yourself. So Nai, Ji, Zai, and V, and actually all our inspirational powers as well, they get stronger as we get anger because the Nai is designed to be to satisfy and then power all the other psyche powers off it. And then why it's angry is going to be most associated with Ji. So rage powers your psyche, and it's mainly has to do with your heroic conduct, your friends, and your foes. That's basically